Dear students, welcome to this discussion on synapse and related topics. So, firstly, the definition of a synapse. A synapse is defined as the functional junction between two neurons. This definition is time tested and we have already learnt it from our school level biology textbooks. Now, what are the two neurons that contribute the synapse designated as? The neuron that transmits the signal towards the synapse is called the presynaptic neuron, while the one which receives the signal through the synapse is termed as the postsynaptic neuron. So we move on to the classification of synapse. As you can see that synapses can be of various types. Now one system of classification is such that the postsynaptic neuron, which is involved in the formation of a synapse, is taken into consideration, while the part of the presynaptic neuron which takes part in the formation of synapse remains constant, and which is the axon of the presynaptic neuron. On the basis of this, synapses are mainly of three categories, namely the axodendritic type, means the presynaptic axon synapses with the dendrite of the postsynaptic neuron. This is also the commonest variety of synapse in the central as well as the peripheral nervous system. The second variety is the axosomatic type of synapse, where the presynaptic axon forms a synapse with the cell body or soma of the postsynaptic neuron. While the third variety, less common, is the axonic variety, where the presynaptic axon forms a synapse with the axon of the postsynaptic neuron. After the first three varieties, there is a fourth variety of synapse, which is known as a dendrodendritic synapse, where the presynaptic as well as the postsynaptic neuron contributes their dendrites to form a synapse. Such synapses are commonly seen within the layers of the retina, in the olfactory bulb, which is a structure in the orbital surface of the brain, and the substantia nigra, which is a part of the basal ganglia motor system. There you can see the four diagrams denoting the four different varieties of synapses which I was talking about just a while ago. Another way of classifying synapses is on the basis of their functionality, that is, how they work. So on that basis, synapses can be chemical synapses, means the action potential traveling down the presynaptic neuron causes exocytosis of chemicals, that is neurotransmitters, from the presynaptic neuron, which enters the synaptic cleft and reaches their specific receptors on the postsynaptic membrane and causes further depolarization and propagation of the action potential in the postsynaptic neuron. This type of synapses are by far the commonest variety of synapses in all varieties of nervous system, whether it is central or peripheral. The second variety of synapse are the electrical synapses, where there is no exchange of any chemicals, just ions pass from the presynaptic to the postsynaptic neuron through gap junctions. These types of synapses is found commonly in the hippocampus, lateral vestibular nucleus, and few other places of the central nervous system. The third variety is the conjoint variety, means they have property of both electrical as well as chemical synapses. That is, they release neurotransmitters as well as they have gap junctions which connects the two neurons forming the synapse. Next, we will discuss the structure of a typical synapse. So what are the components or what are the parts of a typical synapse? First of all, there will be a presynaptic neuron, which I have already said. Now, the presynaptic neuron usually terminates in a bulbous termination called a synaptic knob. Means the axonal ends of the presynaptic neuron undergoes a transformation and forms bulbous ends, and they are known as the synaptic knobs. They contain the secretory vesicles and mitochondria. Secretory vesicles contain the neurotransmitters, and mitochondria are numerous in the synaptic knob because for the exocytosis to take place, lot of ATP is required. Hence, the population of mitochondria is much more in the synaptic knob region. Also, the cell membrane of the knob is thickened in some areas, which are known as the active zones. These active zones are the sites where the secretory vesicles fuse before discharging their contents into the synaptic cleft. So, after the presynaptic neuron, it is quite evident the next structure will be a synaptic cleft. So, what is a synaptic cleft? It is an intervening gap of about 30 nanometer between the pre and post synaptic neuron. So the presynaptic neuron is gone, the synaptic cleft is gone. The next structure obviously will be the postsynaptic neuron. The postsynaptic neuron, whose membrane is also thickened and contains the various receptors, proteins and enzymes for the neurotransmitters to come and bind and for other post-transmission effects, which I shall be discussing just a little while later. This is the diagram which shows the structure of a typical synapse, a chemical synapse. As I have said that the presynaptic axon undergoes a bullous or bulbous transformation and forms a synaptic knob. There are many mitochondria and secretory vesicles in the synaptic knob. The membrane of the presynaptic neuron is thickened where it is encroaching the synapse or where it is forming the roof of the synaptic cleft. Here the secretory vesicles come and bind and empty their contents into the synaptic cleft, which is a gap between the pre and post synaptic neuron, about 25 nanometers to 30 nanometer. These neurotransmitters, after being released from the presynaptic neuron, finds their specific receptors on the membrane of the postsynaptic neuron, which is also thickened and known as the postsynaptic density. So, the next topic of our discussion will be how transmission of signals takes place across a synapse. Here, by synapse, I mean chemical synapse. As we all know that action potential needs to be transmitted from the pre to the post synaptic neuron. How does the action potential travel from the pre to the post synaptic neuron is the topic of discussion and is simply known as synaptic transmission. As the action potential travels down the axon of the presynaptic neuron, it reaches the synaptic knob. Here it depolarizes the cell membrane of the synaptic knob. Depolarization, as you remember, is the moving up of the membrane potential from minus 60 millivolts towards 0. Now as it moves up, due to entry of cations, most commonly sodium, it reaches a voltage of minus 40 to minus 20 millivolt. As the membrane potential reaches those values, voltage-gated calcium channels present on the cell membrane of the synaptic knob opens. As calcium, you all know, is much more outside the cell compared to the inside, the opening of the channels causes calcium influx inside the synaptic knob. Calcium influx leads to 4 important events which ultimately causes exocytosis of neurotransmitters. Those events are recruitment, docking and fusion of the synaptic vesicles to the active zones, and finally release of their contents. Now, after the neurotransmitters are released by exocytosis, they diffuse across the synaptic cleft and combine with their specific receptors on the postsynaptic membrane. These receptors are either ligand-gated ion channels, means binding of the neurotransmitter opens the receptors channels, which causes influx of cations, mostly the sodium ion and sometimes potassium ions. Efflux is also there. Or sometimes the receptor can be G protein coupled receptors or metabotropic receptors, and they determine the final outcome of the impulse transmission. That is, whether the action potential which has traveled down from the presynaptic neuron will be transmitted to the postsynaptic membrane or postsynaptic neuron, or will it not be. What happens to the synaptic vesicles which have released their contents into the synaptic cleft? The synaptic vesicles of the synaptic knob, after their release, are recycled back into the nerve terminal and are refilled with neurotransmitter. This refilling requires a lot of ATP, and that justifies the presence of mitochondria in the synaptic knob. Next, the neurotransmitter which are released into the cleft from the presynaptic neuron, what happens to them? After their work is over, means they have bound to their specific receptors, they are usually reuptaken into the presynaptic terminal or by nearby neuroglial cells. This reuptake is the commonest mechanism by which neurotransmitters are cleared from the synaptic cleft. Another method is rapid enzymatic degradation of the neurotransmitters. And third, a very minor pathway is diffusion. Just simply diffusion away from the synaptic cleft into the other extracellular fluids. There are certain proteins whose names will come up while you study the mechanism of synaptic transmission, namely syntaxin, SNAP25, and synaptobravin, which are the proteins which important for the docking of the secretory vesicles to the active zones of the presynaptic neural membrane, while another protein, synaptotagmin, which is the calcium sensor and is responsible for fusion and exocytosis. Here is a schematic diagram of transmission through a synapse, chemical synapse. As you can see, there is the presynaptic neuron, written as presynaptic cell here in the diagram. The action potential travels down, causes opening of voltage gated calcium channels. These calcium channels causes entry of calcium into the presynaptic neuron. That leads to docking and then release of the neurotransmitters. The neurotransmitters bind to the receptors and either causes opening of ion channels or metabotropic effects. Today I will end my discussion here. Let's have a small recap what we discussed today. Firstly, we discussed the definition of a synapse, which is a functional junction between two neurons. Those two neurons are designated as presynaptic neuron and postsynaptic neuron. The one which transmits the signal towards the synapse is the pre, while the one which receives is the postsynaptic neuron. Next, we discussed the classification of synapses. It could be done on the basis of the part of the postsynaptic neuron which takes part in the formation of the synapse. It could be axodendritic, means the axon of the presynaptic neuron forming the synapse with the dendrite of the postsynaptic neuron. Would be axosomatic, means presynaptic axon forms a synapse with the soma or cell body of the postsynaptic neuron, or axonic, where the presynaptic axon forms the synapse with the axon of the postsynaptic neuron. Rarely it could be also dendrodendritic, where the dendrites of the pre and postsynaptic neurons take part in the formation of a synapse. Synapses can also be classified on the basis of their functionality or how they work. They could be chemical, they could be electrical, or they could be conjoined, means both chemical as well as electrical properties in one synapse only. Next, we discussed about the structure of a synapse. The typical synapse or chemical synapse has a presynaptic neuron. The presynaptic neuron is slightly modified, where it forms the axon into a bulbous termination, which is known as the synaptic knob. The knob contains secretory vesicles, which themselves contain neurotransmitters, and also a lot of mitochondria is there in the synaptic knob, while the cell membrane covering the synaptic knob is thickened in many places. These places are known as active zones, on which the secretory vesicles come and dock before they release their neurotransmitters via the process of exocytosis. The place where the secretory vesicles release their neurotransmitter is known as the synaptic cleft. The synaptic cleft is a region intervening between the pre and postsynaptic neuron. It is about 25 to 30 nanometer in thickness, and it is the region where the neurotransmitters from the presynaptic neuron is released. The postsynaptic neuron contributes also into the formation of a synapse by thickening of its membrane, and this thickened membrane contains receptors, proteins and enzymes which are important for synaptic transmission. The last thing we discussed is synaptic transmission, how a signal is transmitted from the presynaptic neuron to the postsynaptic neuron. By signal we mean an action potential. So the action potential travels down from the axon of the presynaptic neuron reaches the synaptic knob, causes its depolarization. This depolarization leads to opening of voltage-gated calcium channels, which causes calcium influx into the synaptic knob. Calcium influx causes recruitment, then fusion and docking of the synaptic vesicles, and ultimately exocytosis of the neurotransmitters into the synaptic cleft. These neurotransmitters are then reaches to the specific receptors on the postsynaptic membrane and causes their effects. The specific receptors can be ligand gated ion channels, means the binding of neurotransmitter causes opening of ion channels and influx of sodium ions, or sometimes efflux of potassium ions. Or it could be metabotropic or G protein coupled receptor, means the binding of neurotransmitter causes effects inside the postsynaptic neuron, and ultimately that will cause the transmission of the impulse or action potential. Now there are certain other things which we discussed regarding the fate of the neurotransmitters. What happens to them after their work is over? They are usually cleared off by reuptake into the presynaptic neuron or the surrounding glial cells. They can be degraded by enzymes present inside the synaptic cleft, or they just diffuse away into other extracellular fluids. There are certain proteins whose names I have briefly said during this discussion. They are syntaxin, SNAP25, synaptotagmin, and all these proteins are important for you when you are facing the Viva table. For more detailed discussion of these proteins, you can consult Boron's textbook of medical physiology available in your library. The other parts of synapse discussion, means the properties of synapse, will be discussed later. Thank you.